February 1943, Stalag 354, North Africa. Captured German military chef Oberfeldwebel Karl Müller stood in stunned amazement as American troops unloaded crate after crate of flour, sugar, coffee, and meat from olive-colored military supply vehicles. Following 14 months of sustaining the Afrika Korps with shrinking provisions, the 37-year-old culinary specialist from Munich struggled to process the effortless abundance unfolding before his eyes. The Americans were delivering more provisions in this single shipment than his field kitchen had obtained throughout the entire preceding month. Throughout Allied prisoner facilities across North Africa that winter, 1,283 German military culinary personnel would undergo a comparable disorientation. These professionals, trained within the Wehrmacht's strict hierarchical feeding apparatus, would face a culinary reality that shattered everything Nazi propaganda had instructed them about American incompetence and chaos. They would encounter a military organization that provided identical caloric intake to its most junior enlisted man as to its most senior general, where surplus was preferred over scarcity, and where the separation between nourishing prisoners and nourishing sentries would rapidly dissolve beyond distinction. "You'll resume cooking duties by next week," the American lieutenant communicated to Müller through a translator. This straightforward declaration contradicted everything the German chef had been conditioned to anticipate during imprisonment. Nazi instruction had conditioned him for malnutrition, compulsory labor in non-culinary capacities, or mistreatment. Instead, within 72 hours of capitulation, he found himself being questioned about his professional background and culinary expertise.
Army documentation verifies that by March 1943, the United States Army had located and cataloged 83% of captured German food service professionals. These personnel were methodically questioned regarding their instruction, background, and areas of expertise. The Americans weren't merely collecting information, they were performing employment screenings. The Wehrmacht's meticulous documentation of military vocational qualifications retained in seized personnel files enabled American camp supervisors to rapidly locate qualified food preparation staff among the captives. The preliminary assessment of captured German culinary workers encompassed medical evaluations, sanitation procedures, and most astonishingly to the captives, generous meal portions. Sergeant Staff James Dennis, a food service administrator with the 1st Infantry Division, recorded in his field diary, "The German culinary personnel observe our distribution procedures with unconcealed astonishment. They repeatedly inquire whether this constitutes exceptional treatment. We must explain multiple times that this represents the standard ration allocation." Karl Müller and 24 additional German chefs were initially fed, not assigned duties. They observed as American mess hall staff prepared and served meals totaling approximately 3,400 calories per day, roughly twice what frontline Wehrmacht troops had been obtaining during the concluding months in Africa. The German culinary specialists documented remarkable observations in correspondence, later censored but retained in military files. Fresh eggs when they'd witnessed none for months, coffee with genuine sugar, bread manufactured with refined flour rather than the progressively prevalent substitutes of the German armed forces. What commenced as professional interest among the German culinary experts transformed into their initial instruction in American industrial capability. The provisional processing facility housed 5 10-burner field ranges, 3 250-gallon water heating systems, 2 mechanical bread mixers, and refrigeration equipment that operated despite the North African climate. Apparatus that would have been designated for an entire German division's command center was implemented for a single American regiment. On the 8th day of imprisonment, First Lieutenant Paul Hendricks, a mess hall administrator from Nebraska, gathered the German cooks. Via translators, he clarified that they would be incorporated into camp kitchen functions, not as coerced workers, but as professional colleagues. According to numerous prisoner testimonies, this pronouncement was received with incredulity. Wehrmacht structure had rigidly separated prisoner provisions from guard supplies. The American proposition to have German chefs prepare meals for the complete camp community, prisoners and sentries together, appeared inconceivable. This methodical integration of enemy culinary staff into American military food functions would evolve into one of the most remarkable and successful re-education initiatives of the conflict. The principles of democratic food allocation would be demonstrated through bread and stew, through portion dimensions and serving protocols, exposing an American military philosophy that presented German stratification not as military requirement, but as manufactured limitation. The kitchen would transform into an ideological battlefield where German military chefs would encounter American democracy in its most elementary manifestation, the communal meal. April 1943, Camp Blanding, Florida. The gleaming stainless steel work surfaces of the industrial kitchen reflected fluorescent illumination as Feldwebel Werner Schmidt gazed at the mechanical mixing apparatus that could process 200 pounds of flour in one cycle. In Wehrmacht field kitchens, he had kneaded dough manually for years, developing forearms like steel rods from the daily exertion of feeding his unit. Now, he witnessed American machinery accomplish in minutes what would have required his crew hours. Throughout American prison facilities that spring, 857 German culinary experts were incorporated into kitchen functions that demonstrated industrial productivity beyond their professional comprehension. The American camp kitchen at Blanding, one of 155 major POW installations nationwide, contained walk-in refrigeration chambers maintaining exact temperatures of 38 degrees, convection baking systems that could produce 400 loaves concurrently, steam vessels holding 80 gallons of soup, and mechanized dishwashing equipment processing 8,000 plates per hour.
These machines weren't designated for officer installations. They supplied standard mess facilities, feeding thousands of personnel 3 times daily. The systematic introduction to American culinary equipment became a form of inadvertent re-education. Army quartermaster documentation shows German specialists obtaining formal instruction on equipment function, upkeep schedules, and American hygiene regulations. Camp Blanding's kitchen records from May 1943 indicated German cooks completing 42 hours of equipment orientation before standard duty placement, mastering systems more sophisticated than those in Germany's premier hotels. The flour shipments alone astounded me, Schmidt subsequently wrote in a censored but archived letter. Every Monday, the kitchen obtained 6,000 pounds of refined flour, 2,000 of sugar, 800 pounds of butter, and eggs by the thousands. In Germany, butter had disappeared from military kitchens by 1941. Here, they protested if the shipment arrived a day behind schedule. These weekly shipments to a single POW facility surpassed monthly provisions for an entire Wehrmacht regiment during the identical time frame. The administrative framework of American military kitchens produced significant cultural astonishment. German military food preparation preserved strict hierarchical separations, officers obtaining substantially different meals from enlisted personnel, ration quantity and quality established by rank. American mess halls functioned on principles of uniform nutrition irrespective of rank. Quartermaster documentation shows identical caloric distributions from generals to privates, 3,400 daily calories minimum, expanding to 3,800 for intensive labor assignments. This nutritional equality extended to prisoners who obtained the same 3,400 calorie distribution as their American sentries. Medical evaluation documentation from Camp Blanding chronicles weight increases averaging 12 pounds per prisoner within the initial 2 months, evidence of superior nutrition relative to frontline duty. The methodical equality of distribution challenged everything the German cooks had been instructed to execute. Technical information transfer occurred in both directions. German bakers instructed American colleagues in traditional rye bread methods, while Americans illustrated mass production approaches. Kitchen records document German specialists introducing formulas for effective field provisions that Americans incorporated for training operations. Camp Blanding's mess administrator remarked in his June assessment, "The German baking experts have enhanced our bread quality substantially while absorbing our production methods." This reciprocally advantageous exchange was completely unanticipated. The magnitude of American functions provided daily instruction in industrial capacity. Camp Blanding's central bakery manufactured 11,000 bread loaves daily, employing 6 German master bakers within its operation. The installation's industrial coffee systems brewed 500 gallons each morning. The meat preparation station managed 3,200 pounds daily. These figures, documented in quartermaster requisition files, demonstrated production capabilities that overshadowed German military kitchens. By summer 1943, integration had advanced from fundamental instruction to cooperative menu development. The breakthrough occurred when Captain Thomas Williams, Camp Blanding's mess administrator, consulted Werner Schmidt about preparing traditional German dishes for the general mess. "We've observed your men don't complete their portions," Williams stated, according to multiple testimonies. "What would they favor?" This straightforward question, considering prisoners' preferences rather than enforcing minimum requirements, contradicted every principle of prisoner administration the German cooks had been taught. More remarkable was what ensued. "Whatever you recommend, prepare sufficient quantities for everyone, guards included." This request to feed everyone uniformly, regardless of nationality or position, constituted the second transformative revelation. The German cooks, who had been trained to preserve strict hierarchical distinctions through food, were now being requested to eliminate those very distinctions through their culinary expertise. July 1943, Camp Forest, Tennessee. Oberfeldwebel Hans Bruckner stared in bewilderment as the American mess sergeant instructed him to distribute the same substantial beef goulash to both prisoners and guards proceeding through the serving queue. In the Wehrmacht, officers obtained meat while enlisted personnel subsisted on diluted vegetable broth. Here, the 4-ounce servings of tender beef were allocated uniformly to all ranks, with additional portions freely provided to anyone remaining hungry. The separation between captor and captive blurred further when American sentries and German prisoners occupied neighboring tables consuming identical meals prepared by German cooks. Throughout American POW installations that summer, 723 German culinary experts witnessed a feeding apparatus that methodically dismantled their comprehension of military hierarchy. Camp documentation shows identical meal schedules served to American officers, enlisted guards, and German prisoners, 3,400 daily calories allocated without consideration to rank or nationality. This singular reality contradicted years of Wehrmacht instruction, where food quality functioned as the most apparent symbol of military stratification. The food disposal protocols shocked German cooks more than any other dimension of American functions. At Camp Forest, standard procedure mandated discarding any prepared food remaining following meals, approximately 300 pounds daily, according to kitchen records. Hans Bruckner initially declined to implement this regulation, having spent years extending inadequate provisions at the Russian front. His American supervisor clarified
that health codes prohibited reserving certain foodstuffs, but Bruckner perceived only unacceptable waste. This casual abundance exposed American productive capacity more successfully than any propaganda.
I was instructed to feed officers initially, then non-commissioned officers, then enlisted personnel with whatever remained, Bruckner wrote in a journal retained in Army files. Here, I am anticipated to furnish identical portions to everyone. If a general and private arrive simultaneously, neither obtains preferential service. This methodical equality, demonstrated through daily food distribution, provided more powerful re-education than any formal initiative. Kitchen records from August 1943 document the inaugural German cooking event at Camp Forest, where prisoners prepared traditional dishes for the complete camp community. American guards queued for sauerbraten and spätzle prepared by their former adversaries. The occasion succeeded beyond anticipations, with American staff requesting certain German specialties for regular menu incorporation. Military documentation confirmed that 86% of POW camps had incorporated at least one German specialty into standard meal schedules by October 1943. Medical evaluations performed by the International Red Cross that fall documented exceptional health enhancements among German prisoners. Average weight increase reached 17 pounds per prisoner following 6 months in American facilities. Blood analyses revealed substantially improved nutrition relative to baseline measurements at capture. These quantifiable improvements resulted from diet containing daily meat proteins, dairy items, fresh vegetables, and fruits, luxuries that had vanished from German military provisions years earlier. The culinary integration intensified when prisoners initiated formally documenting formulas. Camp Forest's kitchen records show German cooks generating detailed instruction guides for preparing American essentials like cornbread, grits, and hash browns, while American staff documented German methods for productive rye bread manufacturing and meat conservation. This systematic information transfer occurred through daily cooperation rather than formal instruction. Hans Bruckner's personal evolution exemplifies the broader tendency. Initially opposed to American approaches, he progressively adopted productivity methods while preserving German quality criteria. By September 1943, Camp Forest's mess administrator had positioned Bruckner in command of the bakery function, overseeing both German and American staff.
This transition from prisoner to administrator occurred without formal policy modification. Practical necessity simply superseded theoretical obstacles. The supervisory progression followed comparable patterns throughout POW installations. Initial American monitoring gradually transitioned toward German self-administration as confidence developed through daily cooperation. Kitchen organizational diagrams from late 1943 show German culinary experts supervising essential functions at 73% of major POW facilities, with American staff serving progressively as facilitators rather than direct overseers. The pivotal moment arrived during the November 1943 assessment of camp productivity. Quarterly inspection documentation showed that kitchens employing German culinary leadership achieved or surpassed Army criteria for food quality, safety, and resource administration. Rather than reverting to direct oversight, American authorities legitimized the collaborative configuration. Camp Forest's mess facility, now manufacturing 3 daily meals for 3,000 personnel under predominantly German supervision, obtained the highest possible productivity rating from Army evaluators. This formal acknowledgement validated what practical experience had already illustrated, that former adversaries could generate more successful functions through cooperation than through hierarchical authority. October 1943, Oklahoma wheat fields surrounding Camp Alva. Hauptfeldwebel Franz Weiss,
stood speechless as the combine harvester carved a 24-foot path through golden wheat, processing more grain in one pass than his family's Bavarian farm yielded in a complete season. The German baker, component of a monitored work assignment supporting the American agricultural apparatus, observed mechanical productivity that rendered human labor nearly obsolete. One machine, operated by a single farmer, harvested 200 acres daily, equivalent to the work of 200 men employing methods familiar to vice. The systematic introduction to American food manufacturing systems furnished German culinary experts with comprehensive education in industrial capability. Documentation from the Department of Agriculture chronicles 2,743 German prisoners with food production background participating in monitored agricultural initiatives by late 1943. These work assignments followed food from field to table, observing every phase of the supply network that enabled American abundance. The numerical disparities proved impossible to dismiss. American wheat production averaged 17 bushels per acre, compared to Germany's 12. A single American dairy operation in Wisconsin supplied Camp McCoy with 1,500 gallons of milk daily, more than many German villages generated weekly. These statistics, personally witnessed rather than presented as propaganda, systematically undermined German convictions about American productive inadequacy. Most striking were visits to food manufacturing installations. At the Heinz facility near Pittsburgh, German cooks witnessed assembly processes handling 450 tons of tomatoes daily into ketchup and sauce. The Continental Baking Company's installation in Indianapolis manufactured 240,000 loaves daily. These volumes exceeded entire German military production divisions. Franz Weiss subsequently wrote, "The magnitude made our finest facilities appear like cottage operations. Their smallest functions outproduced our largest." The nutritional science underlying American military feeding regulations presented another revelation. German military nutrition had deteriorated to concentrating on minimum survival calories, approximately 2,400 daily for frontline troops by 1943. American standards maintained exact nutritional profiles: 3,400 calories containing 100 grams of protein, comprehensive vitamin supplementation, and balanced food categories. These weren't theoretical guidelines, but daily implementation witnessed by German culinary staff. Symbolic foods carried particular psychological influence. Eggs, requiring substantial grain for poultry feed, appeared daily on American breakfast schedules. Approximately 4.2 million served weekly in POW facilities alone. Fresh citrus fruits from Florida and California arrived weekly in camps throughout America despite wartime transportation difficulties. These luxury foods casually allocated exhibited resource abundance beyond German comprehension. The cooperative commissary environment cultivated unexpected gastronomic innovation. Commissary records from winter 1943-44 chronicled German-American hybrid dishes materializing in camp schedules. German-style potato salad utilizing American abundance of mayonnaise, traditional sausages incorporating available seasonings, apple strudel adapted from mass manufacturing. Camp Alva's documentation notes 15 new formulas developed through cross-cultural cooperation subsequently incorporated into established Army circulation. By December 1943, German gastronomic professionals had commenced requesting authorization to chronicle American methods for post-war implementation. This crucial transition signified their acknowledgement that American approaches constituted not merely wartime benefit, but fundamental progression. Franz Weiss and others commenced methodically documenting equipment specifications, manufacturing approaches, and administrative methods that challenged everything they had previously accepted as gastronomic truth. January 1944, Camp Shelby, Mississippi. Unteroffizier Max Hoffman carefully folded the censored correspondence to his wife in Munich, having strategically described American commissary functions without initiating security concerns. "The bread here contains eggs and milk," he documented, knowing she would comprehend the impossible luxury this constituted in war-ravaged Germany. "Yesterday, I prepared 200 liters of chocolate pudding with genuine cocoa." These seemingly innocent gastronomic particulars, multiplied throughout thousands of correspondences from German chefs to their families, methodically undermined the Nazi propaganda regarding American deprivation more successfully than any Allied transmission. The chronicled physical transformation of German captives furnished irrefutable substantiation of American abundance. Medical documentation from Camp Shelby demonstrate average captive weight acquisition of 22 pounds following 9 months in detention.
Quarterly health evaluations chronicled enhanced muscle mass, diminished vitamin deficiencies, and normalized blood values among 97% of captives by mid-1944. These enhancements originated not from preferential handling, but established American military nutrition, demonstrating that what Germans regarded as luxury, Americans regarded as baseline necessities. Easter 1944 delivered significant cultural revelation when installation supervisors encouraged German chefs to prepare traditional holiday provisions at Camp Shelby. Commissary documentation demonstrates German gastronomic teams allocated 400 pounds of ham, 150 dozen eggs, 300 pounds of potatoes, and 75 pounds of butter to prepare a traditional German Easter feast for 2,000 captives. The casual distribution of resources that persisted rigidly rationed in Germany, particularly eggs and butter, exhibited methodical abundance beyond ideological rejection. Connections with regional agricultural manufacturers further broadened German gastronomic horizons. Mississippi farmers consistently visited Camp Shelby, establishing vocational relationships with German chefs utilizing their goods. Commissary records chronicle regional strawberry cultivators delivering 200-pound daily shipments during harvest period, poultry farmers furnishing 500 chickens weekly, and dairy functions delivering 300 gallons of fresh cream monthly. These immediate connections humanized the captive experience while exhibiting American agricultural capacity. International Red Cross examinations furnished external confirmation of the distinctive commissary configurations. A March 1944 account specifically commended the distinctive and successful assimilation of captive gastronomic professionals into installation functions, observing that this methodology substantially enhances morale while furnishing nutritional advantages surpassing convention requirements. The account chronicled German chefs maintaining positions of substantial responsibility at 82% of examined installations. The gastronomic competition organized at Camp Shelby in June 1944 signified complete transformation from adversaries to colleagues. German and American cooking teams competed to establish the finest dishes utilizing identical ingredients. Commissary documentation chronicles teams establishing 37 distinct submissions utilizing established military goods. German participants subsequently reported this occasion, evaluated by regional restaurant proprietors and military officers, as crucial in establishing vocational respect, transcending captive-century dynamics. By autumn 1944, German gastronomic professionals had commenced requesting authorization to chronicle American methods methodically. Max Hoffman and 5 additional educated chefs at Camp Shelby obtained permission to assemble a thorough manual of American institutional cooking approaches, encompassing equipment specifications, administrative arrangements, and mass manufacturing methods. This 212-page chronicle, maintained in military collections, exposes complete ideological transformation. The former Nazi troops meticulously chronicled American approaches not as adversary practices, but as vocational progression they anticipated executing in post-war Germany. The ultimate validation of psychological transformation materialized through confidential interviews performed by Army intelligence officers. Transcripts from these sessions expose German gastronomic professionals consistently recognizing American abundance not as propaganda, but as methodical industrial accomplishment. One senior German chef declared, "I've been cooking vocationally for 22 years. What I've observed here isn't merely different apparatus, it's a completely different philosophy regarding nourishing people." April 1946, Port of New York. Karl Müller grasped his carefully maintained notebook containing 142 American formulas, equipment specifications, and administrative arrangements as he embarked the transport vessel returning him to Germany. The former Wehrmacht baker wasn't isolated. Army documentation validates that 87% of German gastronomic professionals departed American detention with chronicled American methods. Some transported simple formula cards, while others, like Müller, had assembled thorough vocational references. The American authorities, acknowledging potential Reconstruction advantages, authorized these gastronomic chronicles when most technical materials encountered limitation. Throughout post-war Germany between 1947 and 1955, restaurants established by former POW chefs methodically executed American institutional cooking methods in civilian contexts. The Amerikanisches Schnellrestaurant, American fast restaurant, established in Munich by former camp blanding baker Werner Schmidt in 1949, contained open commissaries, streamlined preparation approaches, and uniform serving quantities previously unknown in German dining. Business documentation demonstrates the restaurant dispensing 3,400 provisions daily by 1952, volume impossible without American mass manufacturing methods. The statistical influence materializes in economic documentation from West Germany's Wirtschaftswunder economic miracle period. By 1955, restaurants established by former POWs employed roughly 27,000 workers, produced 312 million Deutsche Marks annually, and had educated an estimated 7,400 apprentices in hybrid German-American gastronomic methods. These figures represent not merely business success, but methodical knowledge transference from detention installation commissarios to civilian economy. Particular American methods permanently transformed German commercial food preparation. Uniform formula arrangements utilizing exact measurements substituted traditional approximation approaches. Industrial commissary administrative standards, station-based preparation, parallel processing, assembly line provision doubled manufacturing capacity at embracing establishments. Hygiene requirements acquired in POW installations surpassed existing German regulations, with former captives frequently executing American sanitation practices before official necessities. Transatlantic vocational connections established during detention persisted for decades. Business correspondence maintained in company collections demonstrate numerous German restaurant proprietors sustaining contact with their former American supervisors.
Max Hoffman, the former Camp Shelby chef, shared 137 correspondences with Mississippi restaurants between 1947 and 1965, chronicling continuous vocational exchange. These relationships enabled equipment acquisitions, ingredient procurement, and even personnel exchanges. The historical significance of this gastronomic transference reaches beyond restaurants. Former POW chefs who entered institutional feeding, hospitals, schools, corporate cafeterias, executed methodical American methodologies that substantially escalated productivity. Health Ministry documentation from 1958 demonstrates hospitals with former POW commissary directors dispensing provisions at 47% reduced expense while sustaining superior nutritional requirements than traditional functions. Modern substantiation of this transformation persists visible in contemporary German food provision. The Mensa university cafeteria arrangement, restructured in the 1950s, exhibits unmistakable American institutional design influences. Self-provision models, uniform servings, and productive dispensing arrangements immediately traced to POW installation experiences. Restaurant apparatus manufactured in post-war Germany progressively observed American specifications chronicled by returning captives. The narrative completes its circle with Karl Müller, who established Amerikanische Bäckerei, American Bakery, in Munich in 1948. His establishment introduced continuous process bread manufacturing acquired at Camp Crossville, generating 1,200 loaves daily with 3 employees, unprecedented productivity in post-war Germany. Müller subsequently reflected, "I arrived in America a Nazi soldier, persuaded of German superiority. I returned, comprehending that genuine strength resides in abundance distributed to all. The Americans didn't merely educate me to bake differently, they demonstrated a different world was achievable.